I was just listening to the Egyptian Book of the Dead, and I've listened to a lot of things. A lot of things. I've listened to the Emerald Tablets. I've listened to, you name it, I've listened to. I've listened to all of it. The Emerald Tablets, the Gnostic texts, the Nag Hammadi, which is, it's mostly Gnostic texts. Let's see, non-canonical texts, all kinds of stuff. Vedas, Upanishads. I mean, a lot of different things. Probably things I'm not mentioning right now. Like just things I've heard that I'm not aren't coming to mind right now. But through all of it, what I can say for sure is that when I read the Bible, and don't get me wrong, don't hear what I'm not saying. I'm not talking about religion at all, because religion is just another system of control, tradition of man, created by man to control man. It's a form of spiritual control. I'm not saying it's bad necessarily. It can lead to the truth when it's given up, but my understanding of religion led me to Christ, which is, and he is the way, the truth, and the life. There is no doubt about that. But religion is not, it's not freedom, is what I'm saying. And Christ came to free us from all this stuff, these texts. I mean, there's so many of them, and none of them really make sense. Half of them are do this and that. The magic, all of the ritual stuff, all these rituals, and all of the witchcraft, in other words, witchcraft and all this different stuff. Do this and that on Tuesday, but on Thursday do that, but start in the middle and work your way backwards. And then on Saturday, it just follows no rhyme or reason. It just doesn't make any sense. And even when you read in Leviticus and Deuteronomy about the law, it doesn't make any sense. It does, but it doesn't. And one of the things that Jesus Christ when he became Christ after he was crucified and rose again on the third day, he freed us from the curse of the law. That's one of the things that he freed us from. And what is the curse of the law? Well, it's basically all of the laws, but this all was based off of other laws, and there's so much. Christ came to earth, and he knew who he was. He knew who he was. He knew what he was here to do. He was very clear on his mission. He obviously went to the Egyptian mystery schools. He was obviously an initiate. He obviously went through many initiations, the song Amazing Grace says, through many dangers, toils, and snares I have already come. In other words, Christ is saying, it's talking about Christ. I've already come through all the dangers and toils and snares of ascension. You don't need to do this. You don't need to reinvent the wheel, which humans love to reinvent the wheel. And don't get me wrong, I've been guilty of it myself. I'm not judging anything. I'm just saying that I've seen it and I've done it myself, and it's just madness. It is utter madness. And Christ freed us from all of these things. Now, it's not that we don't have to keep God's laws. That's not what I'm saying, but we're not We are not bound by the curse of them. And this, like God, when, because in the New Testament, Jesus brought us into reconciliation with the Father and, reconciled us to the Father. And we know that God honors mercy and faith above, and faith and obedience above sacrifice. And like the Word of God, Bible tells us that. The Bible is like, well, it's an ascension map for every human soul. It is also like the correct and the only correct compendium and or like encyclopedia of all sacred, mystical, and religious texts all put together. And Christ must have studied these things, because when you listen to like Nag Hammadi, when you listen to when you listen to Gnostic, you listen to all these different things, Egyptian Book of the Dead, you listen to like Upanishads, you listen to all these different things. Christ was so genius. I mean, he had to be, because when you listen to, he was obviously the greatest mystic and or like AKA magician ever to walk the earth, ever to grace the earth. And he's also so very clearly like utterly exquisite genius personified, because he must have read all these texts. When you read them, when you know your Bible really well, and you read and or listen to other texts, like I said, I was just listening to the Egyptian Book of the Dead, it becomes so clear that Christ studied these things, and he knew who he was and who he is, and he was like, no, I'm going to simplify all of this, and I'm going to take the truth out of it and leave everything else, and I'm going to make the way, the truth, and the life through all of this for people who will who will take up their cross, lay down their life, and follow me. And it's such a relief. Without his sacrifice, we would not be reconciled to the Father. He knew that blood was the ultimate currency in the spiritual realm, and that only by the blood of a perfect sacrifice could we, because all the other texts, they talk about sacrifice, and the sacrifice confirmation, and they talk about the sacrifice of perfect specimens of rams and lambs and just all kinds of animals, but they had to be like they had to be the firstborn, they had to be perfect, they couldn't have blemish, like they couldn't only have 3 legs, or they couldn't have spots. There were different specifications for different sacrifices, but in Hebrew law they had to be perfect. Like, you couldn't sacrifice the secondborn and it had like a messed up hoof or something. You like confirmation. Like, you needed a perfect sacrifice, and Jesus Christ was the perfect sacrifice. He didn't sin. He knew who he was, and he gave his life for us, so that whosoever, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. God basically sacrificed himself in the flesh so that we could be reconciled back to him. He knew that we had screwed up the laws that he had given us so badly. Humans had screwed up the laws so badly that there wasn't any other way without breaking all of his universal laws, all the universal laws that God gave us, to be reconciled to the Father. And so he came and he lived his life, and it wasn't just that he was sacrificed, that he sacrificed himself, but it was also that he lived his life and he knew what he was dealing with. He walked around amongst a bunch of demon-possessed people, not just possessed, but like demon attachments and all kinds of things. Confirmation. People hated him. Not because they necessarily knew who he was, because I don't think like the average person knew who he was, but they could sense his energy. And if you had demonic attachments, which most people even today do have, they sense your energy. They hate you, even though they may not know specifically who you are, but they hate you just because the spirits in them, the spirits driving their avatar, driving their vessel, know the spirits on him. Like, they know, and the spirits in those of his anointed, like, they know us. They know us. They don't need to know our names or anything. Their energy recognizes our energy, and they hate you on the spot just because of your energy. It's really not anything personal. It's not anything personal. Like, I meet people all the time. I have never seen that person before. I may never see them again, but they hate me on the spot. And it's simply because I'm a disciple of Jesus Christ. Period. That's all it is. It's not because I said anything or I look any type of way or anything else. It's simply because I'm a disciple of Jesus Christ. And they don't necessarily know that. Like, they don't consciously know that. But they energetically, spiritually, quantumly know that. It is such, like, I cannot even... It is such a relief. Like, I am grateful to the Lord Jesus Christ beyond words for his sacrifice for us, because without him, we would be utterly lost. I mean, so many other religious belief sets have been set up. Hindu, of course, Egyptian. I mean, so many. Buddha. There's so many that have been set up. That, like, Sumerian, like all these, like Syrian, all these different kinds of systems that came before. And yes, they did. They came before Christ. And some of them have come after and or during his like around, like overlaid, is what I'm saying. Like they overlap on the timeline. But not one of them reached the pinnacle of truth like he did, and not one of them. They all try to, it's like, it's Christianity, and I'm not saying I'm not a Christian, but, being a disciple of Jesus Christ, I hear the truth in it when I listen to the Egyptian Book of the Dead, or the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, or, whatever it is, the Gnostic texts. They all talk about very, very similar things to what the Bible says. Now, did they come before? I believe a lot of it did come before the Bible, yes. But that doesn't matter. It's not like I'm not looking for seniority. What I'm looking for is the truth. And none of them, like all of them, like I said, it's this kind of like weird, like, do the hokey pokey, under the moon when it's, when it's full, and in the house of Libra, but only if you're wearing red and blue, and paint your toenails white, while doing the hokey pokey, standing on your head. You know what I mean? Like, it's so wackadoodle. Like, how in the world is anybody supposed to find the truth in any of that? And a lot of it is convoluted as far as, like, morally. There are just so many things that are just weird. Like, wait a second. It's contradictory. A lot of it is contradictory. It doesn't really make sense. And none of it is completely pure in its in its guidance of the human heart. It just, none of it is. Not really. And if it is, if it's trying to be, it's not specific enough for us to, like, live by. Some of it is so weird. It's and I'm not judging it. What I'm saying, I think that they were trying to do what Christ did. All of them. But none of them attained the true way and like the light, the pure light that Christ did. None of them. All these other gods, like, sent their own apostles and prophets and everything else to earth, trying to imitate what Christ did. None of them. They all failed. Some of them came close, but just never. It's always like an almost kind of thing, and almost doesn't count when you're talking about your eternal soul, like the redemption of your eternal soul. Almost never counts. Like, almost doesn't count. Like, it's not just the redemption of our bodies. It's our eternal souls. Like, there is nothing and no one else that you could trust not just your life and your physical body and your mind and your heart to, but you can trust your eternal soul with Christ. It's just, it blows my mind that he was able to figure all this out. And on top of all of that, lay down his life in a really horrific way. I mean, they didn't just whip him, they put scourges, like they had whips that like had hooks on the end and ripped his flesh out. They opened up his spine, and he was hanging on a cross, like a wooden cross, like that. Like, this wasn't like a smooth wooden cross. This was rough, and his spine, like his open, exposed nerves were rubbing up and down on the rough cross. They cut off his genitals. Like, seriously, that's horrifying. That's really bad. I mean, he had his bowels sticking out. Like, are you kidding me? Really not, like, really bad. Really bad. It's just, I mean, I don't like to focus on what was done to him on the cross, obviously. But at the same time, when you really realize what was done to him and what he subjected himself to, because he had every chance to run, and he could have run. He could have used his followers and his disciples to protect him. I mean, Peter cut off the guard of the ear of the Roman guard, and Christ put it back, like literally reattached the Roman guard's ear to his head, because he didn't want Peter to be in trouble with him. And he didn't come for a fight like that. He was fighting and victorious on the cross, even though it looked like even though he was being tortured and killed. He won a victory for every human soul, every single one. Every single one. And it is not God's will that anyone should perish. And that means everybody. Even the worst of the worst of the worst. No one should perish, not even one. Christ was told not to lose even one. Don't lose any of my sheep. Like, this is, Christ leaves the 99 to come find that lost one. It's not a joke. Like, Christ, and the 2 commandments that Christ gave us after the 10 commandments that were given to Moses, Christ says, Christ wraps it all up in 2 very simple commandments. Not easy, but simple commandments, where he says, love the Lord thy God with everything you've got, your heart, your mind, your body, everything. And love one another as I have loved you. That simplifies so many different things that the 10 commandments were. And it's not that the 10 commandments had flaws. It's that the people following the 10 commandments had so many flaws, and they wanted to reinterpret God's law and interpret and reinterpret until it was picked apart and it didn't make sense and nobody was following it anymore. Or, you had these people who were making such a mockery of God's law, like the Sadducees and the Pharisees, because they wanted to find ways around God's law so that they could still be righteous by manipulating God's laws. Like, what? And I mean, this has gone on for so long, but Christ took all of these different paths. He took all of them, every single one of them, and compiled it all into a one simple to follow, I mean, not easy, but simple to follow way, which is him, which is to follow him. I mean, it wraps it all up in such a nice, neat little bow. And I see the threads of truth. I see the threads of truth through all these different sacred texts and all these different non-canonical scriptures and all these different things. The truth is in there. It's just really hard to follow because it becomes convoluted. It becomes secondary to this or that or the other thing, and none of it really is like simple. And the thing is that human beings, when we're following any school of thought or any kind of knowledge or wisdom spiritually, we need simplicity. Because the fact of the matter is, when a human being is scared, hurt, angry, and abandoned, they tend to do stupid things. All of us do. Like, especially with trauma, abandonment issues, all these different things that these demonic forces, these fallen programs, whatever you want to call them, feed off of this energy harvesting that happens to us. Christ saw all of this, and he said, I'm going to make this really simple, because that's what humanity needs. We need simple. And he knew the nature of the nature of humanity is we do stupid shit when we're hurt, scared, angry, alone. We do stupid things. We tend to self-sabotage. We tend to speak badly against others, aka committing, using witchcraft in our words against ourselves and others, like word curses, like saying things like, oh, I'm so stupid, or oh, I'm a failure, or even thinking it. Christ knew the human heart so well, because he had one, that he knew he had to make it simple for everybody, and like something that everybody could follow. And it is just extraordinary to me that he was able to do this. The sheer and uncomparable and unrivaled genius that he was is just, it's exquisite. And anyone who says otherwise is just simply not seeing it. Like, it's the most beautiful and graceful genius that this earth has ever known or will ever know. It is so perfect. It's just so perfect. He's just perfect. It's perfect. What he gave us is perfect. And I know that I'm biased because I genuinely love Jesus Christ. And at the same time, it boggles my mind how people think that they have found a way of their own, or that they founded some other way. Like, wise and ancient sages and wise men and women, like holy men and women have been searching for the truth for all of time, through all of space and time. And somehow, still to this day, there are individuals on this planet who think that they're going to be the one to find the way. I'm like, wait a second. Christ already did this. You are not going to, it boggles my mind. Like, how can you even think that? The kind of, deception that goes on in their hearts and their minds. I genuinely empathize with that, but at the same time, all I can do is really encourage people with a pure heart. Follow Christ. He doesn't want to take anything from you or take your power or do anything else. If anything, he wants to add to it. This is why the deception of the enemy is so real, especially right now. Excuse me. We've got a whole generation of people using divination and tarot and all this kind of thing, all of them being told that they are the second coming of Christ. Every single one of them deceived beyond their wildest dreams. And the worst part is, they don't even know that they're deceived. They don't believe it. They don't believe that they're deceived. They believe that they're the one, that they have found something that nobody else, that all of the, that Siddhartha didn't find, that Muhammad didn't find. None of them found it, right? But they found, this modern human who isn't even following any kind of God's laws, any of God's laws, and they know this kind of mishmash of Christianese and a little bit of Hindu over here and a little bit of Buddhist over there, and none of it makes any sense. None of it. The thing that they're following is kind of like this tattered, like, you know, patchwork quilt of like some truth here and a whole bunch of lies. Like a whole bunch, you know, like little pieces of truth all stitched together with the thread of lies. And I'm just thinking, like, how does that work? Like, how can you not, like, how do you lay down at night and not know in your heart that something's wrong? Something's wrong. Because our bodies are literally biofeedback suits to tell us that something's wrong. Like when you can't sleep at night, or, I mean, there's so many things that will tell you that something's wrong. Your body's literally a biofeedback suit connected to the spiritual realm to tell you if something is wrong. You have an ache, you have a pain, there's something wrong. Like something's wrong. You can feel it. And even if you don't have any, like, you know, aches or pains in your body, you can feel something's wrong in your mind. You can feel it in your heart. Your heart is like the greatest biofeedback loop that you could ever have, because you know you're not at peace. And that's truly like discernment. When you're a disciple of Jesus Christ, you know something in your heart isn't settled. Your heart doesn't have true peace and joy and hope. And if you don't have those things, something's wrong. Something's wrong. If you don't lay down at night and feel utterly okay, like you could die in the next 5 minutes, and you could honestly say that you were fine. That you weren't just fine, but you were joyful, and that even if even if you passed away in your sleep, that all is well with my soul. Like, if you can't say that, something's wrong. Something's wrong. If you can't forgive others and forgive yourself, something is wrong. If you cannot love others, like, you may not like everything that they do, you may not agree with it, but truthfully, you have to, like, if you're not loving other people, and I know how difficult they can make it for us, but if you don't love them and truly not want to do anybody, and I mean anybody, any harm, even the people who have horribly hurt you, betrayed you, left you, and harmed you, and intentionally and unintentionally, in all kinds of ways, if you don't truly love those people, something's wrong. I mean, I'm not saying like you need to forgive them and like hang out with them again or something like that, but there are people who have harmed me horribly in this world. I mean, really, really bad things that they've done. And yet still, if any one of them came to me and asked me for forgiveness, I've already forgiven them in my heart. Like, it's done. It's a done deal. But if any one of them came to me and genuinely said, you know, I really need you to forgive me for this. Please help me. You know, please help me. Please give me your forgiveness. I would freely give it. Freely give it. Like, I know that I would. And I don't just know it in my mind. I know it in my heart. And it's because forgiveness is freedom. And that's a huge thing that Christ taught us, was to forgive one another. I mean, the Lord's Prayer, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. It is so important to forgive, because without forgiveness, you start to procure bitterness and resentment and anger in your heart. And when you have those things in your heart, you are poisoning yourself. Bitterness, resentfulness, anger, it's always, you might as well be drinking the poison and hoping the other person dies. That's what bitterness, anger, and resentment do to the human heart. It is like drinking poison and hoping the other person dies. It is that horrible. It's that detrimental and destructive to the human heart. to carry those things around. If you have not fully forgiven other people and yourself, it will destroy you. It will destroy your heart. It will destroy your mind, and it will destroy your body. Period. End of story. We see people all the time walking around with cancer and all kinds of things, and we're like, what's going on? Yeah, it's not as complicated as we make it out to be. We talk about DNA and all these different things and the cure for cancer and blah blah blah. The biggest cure for cancer is forgiveness. It is the biggest one, to forgive other people and forgive yourself. And I am fully aware of how difficult that can be. Forgiving myself has been one of the most difficult things. I found it always a lot simpler, not easier, but simpler to forgive other people than to forgive myself. And I know that a lot of people that are pure-hearted, it is more difficult to forgive yourself because you feel like you know better, like you should do better because you know better. But the measure that we forgive others, we should forgive ourselves. And Christ taught us how deeply his forgiveness goes. And when he gives us that second commandment to love one another as he loves us, it is that important. It's that crucial to forgive ourselves and others. We must do it. And forgiveness is a form of love. Anyhow, it's just incredible to me how much truth, when it's not about Christ being like, when I say Christ is the way, the truth, and life, I'm not just quoting the Bible, quoting what Christ said. It's the truth. It is the standalone truth. It's not just the truth because, I want Christ to be right, and everybody else be wrong because I have to be right or something. No. He is the standalone way, truth, and the life. There is no way. There is no other way to the Father except by the Son, and no one comes to the Father except by the Son. And the Son reveals the Father to whom he pleases. Like, you must come through the Son if you want to be reconciled to the Father. Like, it has to be that way. There is literally no other way. None. And like I said, I don't say that because I need to be right and I need everybody else to be wrong. It's not about that. It's about the way to salvation for everyone's soul, not just mine. It is of utmost importance to bring as many souls to salvation as possible. It is of the utmost importance, not because it's the best thing for Christ or the best thing for me. It is the best for them. And when you love other people, you truly love them. You want the best for them. And you don't just want the best for them, you want the best for their children and for their mothers and their fathers and their sisters and their brothers, because you want people to, it's not about conversion or anything like that, because that's another system of control in religion. It's about wanting people to have the peace and joy and hope in their hearts and their minds and congruency with those things in their bodies, so that they can live and have, not just have life, but have life more abundantly, so that they can be joyful and hopeful and peaceful. This is part of what we're called to do. And frankly, if you're not out here on the earth helping other people, I really genuinely don't know what in the actual F you're doing. Because if you're not here to help people, what are you here to do? If you're not helping, you're being part of the problem. And if you're part of the problem, get out of the way. Seriously. Because you don't just cause problems for other people, you're causing problems for yourself. And when you start to see the illusion of separation for the lie and deception that it truly is, all you ever want to do is really stop and stop being part of the problem. Because the problem is all this deception is going on and has been going on for so long. We just really need a serious injection of truth. And it's harsh when you see people defiling themselves, defiling their minds, defiling their bodies, traumatizing their hearts again and again and again by their own hand, and going back to these lies and believing in them, which makes them deceptions. And it's just a horrible mess of people falling into the black goo of the matrix again and again and again and again and again and again, believing the lies of the enemy again and again and again, re-traumatizing themselves and the people around them again and again and again, often in the name of truth or in the name of their truth. I hear people talk about that a lot. Well, this is my truth. Well, you know what? I don't follow my truth. My truth is bullshit. My personal truth is bullshit. It always was. It will always be. I gave up my opinions. I gave up my personal truth. I mean, there are things that are like true to my life, or there are things that, like, truthfully they happened, but they're not congruent. Nothing is in congruency with the truth unless it's in alignment with the truth of God. Period. End of story. And I know it sounds like very rigid to people to, well, there's only one truth. Yeah, there is. Because if there isn't one truth, there's a million truths that are not true. There's a million deceptions. Now, you can either take one truth or a million deceptions. But either way, like, if you want to go down the road of deceptions and go down the road of you know, a whole bunch of personal truths, then nothing is the truth. And that doesn't lead anywhere except nihilism and destruction. It doesn't go anywhere else. I really genuinely encourage people to investigate into who Christ really, really is. Because what religion told me about Christ was total crap. It was all a lie. None of it was true. I didn't know that for most of my life. I suffered under spiritual abuse and deception, and it wasn't even necessarily that those people were trying to deceive me. They just didn't know the truth themselves. So how could they teach me the truth? There is so much more going on in this world than meets the eye, and it is imperative for everyone to find the love of Christ. Because at the end of the day, He is the one who will love you through all of your bullshit. He is the one who will see you through the hard times, the good times, and everything in between. He is the one who will never guide you down some crappy path that will lead you to more trauma and more pain ever again. He binds up your wounds. He heals your abandonment issues. He puts you back together. And it doesn't always feel like it, believe me. I totally know that. I'm 100% aware of that. But He is the only one who can heal all of the wounds that this world has. We all need Jesus Christ. We all need Him. There is not any exception to that rule. Not one exception. I genuinely hope that this recording finds you blessed. Love, blessings, and compassion to everyone. Every single one. Take care of one another. Take care of yourselves. Peace be with you.